What is up? This is the War Dog. Welcome to Comic Book Theater with our special guest, William Pace. What's going on, William?
How you guys doing today?
Awesome, brother. Awesome. Just sweating it out here in Georgia in this nice, cool, beautiful night. Today we're going to talk a little bit about future value of comic books that are coming out today. But before I even say anything else about that, I'll give it over to John. John, do your thing, brother.
Right on, man. Yeah, I was inspired here the other day by our friend Reggie over at Reggie Collects. Somebody had asked him the question, and I want to pose it to you guys too. So, what do we believe? And I've asked the community as well. What do we believe is going to drive prices for modern age comic books? And then also the follow-up to that is it possible for a modern age comic book to achieve the same level of pricing as golden and silver age books at their current level today? Now, for me personally, I'll just tell you guys, for me personally, I don't know that I believe that your average key is going to achieve those prices. I think there are a lot of variables that go into it. And the thing too is if the keys aren't going to achieve those prices, I don't see how Run Filler could ever hope to achieve those prices. William, I'm going to kick it over to you, man. What do you think it's possible for do you think it's possible for them to get to those prices? And if so, what's going to drive them on those prices?
They will never achieve that status. There's a lot of things that go into it. For the fact that I know when I was a kid, because I'm old, like Todd, and
yeah,
when we were young kids, we'd get our comic books and we'd roll them up in our back pocket, jump on our bikes, ride down the street to our friend's house, and we'd sit there swapping them back and forth. So a lot of like the silver books that people are buying nowadays, we're in somebody's hip pocket, which is why the condition is like 4 or 5 or below on a lot of them, and some of them you catch. I mean, I've been seeing like a lot of like good stuff coming around, like even on some of the Facebook Live auctions. I can't buy as much as I'd like to, obviously, because I'm on a super tight fixed income, being handicapped and everything. So, but I still read as much as I can. But there's a few things that will not so much hold the price, but hold like an above average cover to sell ratio in the modern era. But it's very few and far between. The first one that comes to my mind has got to be Batman Damned #1.
I can see that a little bit. I worry that the controversy drove that one and that it won't stand the test of time because it went way up, but then came way back down.
I think it'll hold between like $35 to a $45 value for a while, and you also have to come into play that it didn't have a regular print run.
Right.
And condition will play very high on that, because I sent a copy of #1 back 3 times because it came through damaged all 3 times.
Now, the funny part about that is I have not checked the CGC census. I probably could here real quick for us, but I'll tell you right now, that is one of the books that I have seen more 9.9s and 10.0s than any other book that I can think of off the top of my head.
Oh, yeah.
like for real, if you didn't get a 9.9 or a 10, even if you got a 9.8, which we all know, that's amazing to get a 9.8. If you got a 9.8, sorry about your luck, man, because that's a subpar grade for that book. If you send it in to get it graded. Now I know too a lot that not everybody's doing that, but I would think that the ratio of 9, 9s, and 10s is extremely high for that book.
Oh yeah, I saw like 2 or 3 10.0s come through in like the first month.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I actually made a trade with that book, and I told the guy that I traded that book to that you could probably send this one in and get a 10.0 just because of the binding and everything and the way that it came through, the quality of the book. I could see a lot of 10.0s on that book. You know, to piggyback off of what William said, I mean, I think one of the biggest factors is preservation. When we were, you know, if you go back, I don't think things will ever hit the golden age price ever again. I don't think that's even possible. Like Superman #1, Amazing Fantasy 15, all of those books just probably will never happen again, just because nowadays we preserve things and we understand that they're actually collectible. The one book William mentioned, his one book was Batman Damned. My one book that I would present as showing that there is potential for some value for keys would be like the first appearance of Deadpool, because we know that the 90s, I mean, we all experienced the 90s. William even probably experienced the 50s. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just messing with you. But we all experienced the 90s, and that was a period of like oversaturation of the market. And a book like the first appearance of Deadpool still has has some value, and I think there's a lot of copies of that book out there, but I think that people still want it, still want to hold on to it. I think every comic book collector probably would love to have a copy of it. So I'll cut myself off and pass it on to you, John.
No, you're cool. And actually, I appreciate exactly what you guys are saying about these books, because that actually falls into one of the questions that I asked myself whenever I was doing the preparation for this podcast specifically. Firstly, what's going to make a modern age key? You brought up first appearances. First appearance of a new character that impacts an existing content. It can't be a minor player. In other words, it can't be cop #3 that says 2 lines in any book, has never seen again, that looks like your Uncle Steve. That's not a first appearance. That's not going to be a key. So you know, now I will say this too, on the criteria that I have written down in my notes for it, to me personally, it actually is going to have multiples of these criteria for it to have any remote chance. But I will say, William, you brought up too the scarcity of the books that are happening now. The scarcity, really, the way I would define it is, and I'm gonna borrow Reggie's definition of it. Scarcity and rarity are different in this scenario. Scarcity just means that there's a supply, but the demand far outstrips the supply. That's why we would say, like Batman Damned #1, it's got a good chance. It's scarce. It's not rare. There's not only 300 of them out there. It's scarce, because we all know that, kind of like Todd said about first appearance Deadpool. Again, not rare at all. Hundreds of thousands of them. Likely, we will see this coming summer. Several people will post it to one of the Facebook pages. I found this at a garage sale for $1. Isn't that awesome? Because like we were talking about, we all lived through the 90s. So you know, there's scarcity. The rarity, the only way rarity would happen is something like The Crew, where it's done through a crowdfunding. The Crew #1 is going to be a rare book. When we get to issue number 55 or 60, and it's starting to really churn out there, and Todd's having to print up 20, 30, 40,000 books to send them out, crew number one at the how many units did you do on number one there, Todd, if you don't mind me asking?
Probably 300 to 500.
Okay, so let's do the high end there. 500 is still extremely rare. I mean, we're talking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number one here on the first print. That's extremely rare. So those things now, and I'll tell you guys too, I don't consider TMNT number one. I consider that Copper Age. So I don't consider that modern age. I'm talking like 90s through right now as being modern. So first appearance, rarity and scarcity. I personally think that the general public has to have an emotional attachment to the cover of the book as well. I know that Cam Hewitt said whenever I asked in the group that he feels as though covers are driving key prices more than anything else. How much of an impact do you guys see covers having on pricing for these modern age keys? You guys see them having like percentage wise? You think it's a third? You think it's a quarter of the appeal? What do you think?
Well, now you're getting into a pet peeve of mine. The whole, we're going to market ourselves as a comic company, but we're just another comic book shop. But we got deep pockets, so we're going to throw our cash at this publisher and that publisher to get a special cover so we can say it's rare and blah, blah, blah. Oh. And that's a pet peeve of mine, because now people aren't buying the book. They're buying a cover. I could print my own friggin' cover for a book.
It's true. Look.
That one should sell for like, 10 grand because I only printed one of them.
Well, that's the comic book companies trying to generate scarcity and rarity, basically. I mean, there's several covers every single month, every single week, where they're rare and they cost a lot more money.
So this is the deal, and I will tell you the funny part about that is, William, again, you're reading my mind on this, man. In my notes that I have here, I actually have a section called traps, and these are things that people should look out for and should be cautious about, and should not just throw money at thinking, hey, I spent $100 on this book because it's got a smoking cover on it, and that means that in a year it's still going to be worth $100 or it's going to be worth $300. Fill in the blank here, okay? And I will tell you, I've done business with a lot of these companies through the years, but what I do is, whenever I'm buying those, I'm not looking at them as an investment type of thing. I'm looking at it and saying, I have an emotional investment in that cover. I love that cover. That cover is something special to me personally. I don't plan on ever getting rid of it. Again, not an investment piece for me. It's something that I want for me. You know what I'm saying? And I get what you're saying too, of people print runs of 3,000, 1,500 basically, and then they sell them in sets of 3. They have and again, there's a demand for it right now. Can I tell you that I think in a year or 2 years that it's going to be a good investment? I'd venture to say 80% of those are going to be a poor investment. And
I think, I think,
I might
I
be generous.
yeah, no, I think 80% is even too low. I mean, you know, how many books come out every week, and how many are actually going to be valuable? It could be like one a month. Now, I mean, when you talk about investment, there's short-term investment and long-term investment, and I've seen books on the short term, like the first appearance of Cosmic Ghost Rider. There was a special cover. It sold for $50, and I seen that baby shoot up to $700. And I actually, to be honest with you, I had thought about buying that because I was really enjoying the run, but I just couldn't picture myself spending $50. And of course, after it goes up, I'm kicking myself saying, oh my God, because not because I want that book, because I want to sell that book. And then I want to go buy the first appearance of Punisher or something like that, you know? Um,
So I'm gonna bring up I'm actually gonna show this one off here, okay? Because this is one that I love. I really dig this book. I did not get the full set of them. I only got the one. You guys remember this book from a few years back?
Yep.
It's an amazing cover. I love it. Deadpool back in black. I got it autographed by Cullen Bunn at Southwest Missouri Microcon. You can see his scribble right there. I love the cover. I'll tell you right now, if I'm a betting man, I'm betting you right now, you're paying as much now or a little less than whenever it was brand new, smoking hot solicitation. This might have been cover of the year in some cases for some people for that year. Okay. But now, when's the last time you thought of this book since then? Either one of you guys.
I've never thought of that book.
Precisely.
mhm.
Todd?
Yeah. That's one of the things about collecting new comics is you buy something that's hot the one week, and it might be hot for the week, but then the next week's comics come out and people just forget about them.
Right. Now having said that, this is a Silver Age book that does not have a cover on it at all. I promise you, if you see this book and it's reasonably priced, you should pick this book up.
Oh, I know what that book is.
This is for the uninitiated, for those who are not familiar. I'll tell you right now, I lucked into it. Complete luck. Super lucky. Justice League of America #1. Okay. That's what this is without a cover on it. Now, I'll tell you right now, guys, I don't know of a single solitary modern age book that I would buy coverless. I can't think of one.
Well, that comes back to the whole preservation thing. I mean, there won't be there's so many books out there, and most people are preserving them. You're not going to have to buy a coverless one if you want a good one. I mean,
Right.
When you go back in time, I mean, it's like William said, you put it in your back pocket, you ride on your bike, right?
Oh yeah. And here's another example. It's an amazing cover. It's a Neil Adams cover. We know William is a huge fan of Neil Adams. He loves him. I think William's going to be writing his autobiography at some point. Neil Adams cover on the Spectre. Okay, so it's a beautiful cover, but it is just beat to snot around here. It's got some issues all over it. Well loved book that people will buy in that condition for something like that because the cover's rough. It's like barely attached. But I bought it because wow, amazing cover, great cover artist on it, Silver Age book. Yes, please. You know what I mean? So I know the people who are saying to themselves, eventually the modern age will be as old as the Silver Age is. Again, I don't see them buying modern age books in that condition and being glad about it. I see them doing it because that's all they can afford, that kind of thing. So I don't know. Now another thing that I think we would consider for a modern age key is something like Batman: The Killing Joke, where the story is impacted in such a way it changes the direction of a major popular character. I think, and again, I think the cover plays a good role in that because there's great cover appeal there. What do you guys think that stories like that have a chance at achieving some of those loftier prizes?
In the Batman universe, since I'm a huge Bat fanatic, there's books like that. I'm not saying will achieve a super lofty price because they're already up. I think is for the most part as high as they're going to go, give or take like yearly increases, but like maybe like 1 to 3% overall would be stuff like the first appearance of Bane, Vengeance of Bane 1 and 2, Killing Joke. What was the other one I was just thinking of that went me in my old mind?
Would it be Death in the Family or something like that, or Year One? Any of those?
No, because those are relatively nice to get, but there's so many of them out there, and I was thinking of more singular issues than I was of like a run. Like Death in the Family was like those handful of issues. Year One was another handful of issues. Alex Ross cover. Not the first appearance of Harley Quinn, but when Harley Quinn first into
yeah,
Mad Love.
Yeah, that's Mad Love. There you go. Yep.
I'm like, I see the cover in front of my mental picture, but I'm like, the hell's the name of the book? Flip the page. I got to look at the fine print.
Yeah, man. No, those are good. That's a good one because that one's up there. But again, I think, and technically, you're right. It's not her first appearance, but it's the first appearance of Harley Quinn in the main DC continuity of the time, and it has that smoking cover. So it's got two. Again, I think that it's got to have multiple criteria for it to reach into some of those more loftier price ranges.
Mm-hmm.
And so while not a technical real actual first appearance, it is enough of a first appearance. I think it counts. I also kind of think that if it's an artist or a writer's first foray into being published, so if you have somebody like an Alex Ross's first work, or if you have something like a Todd McFarlane's first work, maybe Donny Cates's first published work, some of those, I think those have chances at it. Well, again, with them being very first, chances are they're not actually being, Todd McFarlane did not cut his teeth on Amazing Spider-Man.
Nope.
Well, let me jump on to what you're saying. There is, I think, what is it Batman 880 that I think it's Jock?
That's the Jock cover. Yep.
That's the Jock cover. I mean, that's one book that is actually valuable just based on the fact that Jock did that amazing cover. Okay. So, I mean, there is that possibility that if you do something really special, you could, it would be like getting a Picasso. And that's what the Jock cover kind of feels like.
Okay, so it would figure. The Batman guy in the room's got 3 of them. What I was going to say though is that actually goes. There is a secondary component there. While it's a killer cover, there's also scarcity because of the demand. I think, and again, for a modern print run, William, wasn't that kind of a lower print run range for Batman? Really? That there wasn't a ton happening there, was there?
No, because we're talking about an area of time where Marvel and DC and like even Image and Dark Horse came to the realization that they, they were overprinting books. They were spending more money overprinting books and getting them back for not selling, from the warehouses and stuff. And they're stuck with these, and then they either have to blow them out or they have to toss them in the recycle bin.
Yeah.
Now I bought multiples of that 880 because Joker is my favorite villain.
Right.
And anybody that follows me, like my personal, like Instagram and Twitter, knows that because my call sign is Joker fan, and anybody that's seen my custom airbrushed leather jacket after the Alex Ross book knows as well. So I bought it. I'm like, wow, this cover is badass. It's the Joker's face, but it's made out of bats. This is awesome. Yeah. And
yeah.
I went to grab some. He goes, 2. I go, I'll close the store tomorrow night if I can have 3. He goes, okay, we're open to 9. I go, we're open to 8. He goes, well, you want that book? You want that extra book? We're open to 9. I go, screw it, we're open to 9.
There you go.
I read that book, but not the original. You know how every time San Diego comes around, there's all of a sudden all these books that were hot that they bring back in these special 90s foil chromium cover things.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That was one. And I do deal with one guy that I really like that always treats everybody good is Mr. McDonald there from Clan McDonald.
Yep. I think his first name is Steven.
Steven, yeah. Yep. Steve always treats me good, always hooks me up. And I had ordered the jock. There were so many that I wanted, but I go, well, I'm poor. If I don't eat next week, I can buy this one. So I'm going to buy this one. And I bought it with the premise that it would be signed by Jock and Scott Schneider.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got it in, graded 9.8, it was signed by Jock, Scott Schneider, and
the illustrator.
The interior artist for that book. Because did the cover, Schneider wrote it, and then
whoever did the interior artwork, the most important guy probably that nobody ever respects.
Yeah, the most important guy. And if they weren't still all taped together from my move, and I wouldn't have to hobble across the room with a walker, I'd go get it.
No, you're cool, man.
It's all good, brother.
Yeah, man. So actually, that kind of brings me into some of the another area of those traps. Do you guys think that con variants are going to have legs? Because we were talking about vendor variants there. And look, I'm a fan of variants because to me, you're employing more artists, so artists are getting paid. They're getting more work, so I enjoy that aspect of it. In some cases, it is helping the local comic shops because they're able to turn their variants and make a profit, keep the lights on, stay open. I get that too. I'm a capitalist, so I'm not going to begrudge them. If there is a demand for it, do it. The the ratio variants for me personally are the ones that kind of irk me, because the publishers are putting these comic shops and the collectors both in kind of a bind by saying, okay, this is a deal. If you want this cover by, we were talking about Jock, let's say by Jock, you have to buy 25 books to get one of these. Now, what the comic shops that are smart do, they look at it and say, okay, well, we're going to price that one at a ratio to pay for the other 24 books. Then our profits come every time we sell one of the 24 books. If we end up setting on 13 of them, we still made profit off of the 12. We're good. We can then sell those in dollar bins later, put them in mystery boxes, blah, 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 fill in the blank. To me, that's where I feel a little shady about it whenever I see. And look, a 1 in 5 variant, okay. If 5 comic books is going to break a comic book shop, chances are they weren't long for this world anyway. But whenever you start talking about 1 in 25s, 50s, 100s, 500s, and 1000s, come on, man. Come on, really?
Yeah, those are tough. I have a small comic book shop, and he can't afford to get 1 in 25 variants. I think that's kind of ridiculous. I think it's kind of like the comic book market trying to create scarcity. People often, there's always the argument. I have a lot of artist friends, and they always, if you mention Stan Lee, they get upset because Jack Kirby, right? And I respect both of them. But I mean, the one thing that I could probably say about Stan Lee, as a businessman, I think he really got it. And it was basically, comic books need to be available and affordable. And they're not available. They're not either at this point right now, right? When we were kids, we used to go to, I used to go grocery shopping with my parents, and then, I'd pick out a few things, and then I'd go look at the magazine rack, and there was some comic books there, and I'd go look at them. Or there was a rack. They were available. And I mean, they're not available to today's kids. And then affordable, I mean, we talked about this, last week when we were talking about piracy. When you're charging $4 or $5 for a comic book, I mean, are you going to bring anybody new into the comic book industry? I mean, us old timers, we might buy, some of us might buy them just because, we love comic books, but are we going to bring in new people? I don't know about that.
And the bigger problem now is with the younger generation, you can't get them to read anything that they can't look at on their iPhone or their iPad.
That does happen more often. I mean, look, I think that, and I brought this up last week too, is that I get it that the story I told then and I'm about to retell is fewer and further between. But the fact of the matter is, there were 6 kids in for the Black Friday sale at my LCS, and it's a little small mom and pop place. And they didn't buy pops, they didn't buy T-shirts or anything else. They each walked to the cash register with a stack of 6 to 7 back issue books. That's all the mom and pop store sells is back issues, because kind of like you guys are talking about here, price points, and like I was saying too about these ratios, a mom and pop store cannot afford to chase ratios.
Nope.
I'm telling you right now, at least one, if not 2 of the comic book stores in my town of a couple 100,000 people directly affected by people chasing ratios. Whether it was the store staff chasing ratios so that they could then sell them online, or whether it was customers coming in saying, I will buy XYZ ratio at said price range. Then when it comes in, customers nowhere to be found, and the store didn't charge them up front for it. You know what I mean? It kind of is one of those deals where it was a that, and again, that may be why I have such a bad taste in my mouth from ratio variances, that it's directly affected my local comic book community.
Well, with ratios, I mean, if it's not it's just, we go back to the whole key issue thing, right? If it's not a key issue and you're paying up to get this book, you're really not getting anything special. I mean, it's just a run filler with a limited print run. But after 5-10 years, will anybody care about it? No, probably not. Now, when it comes to like significant keys, like I said with the Cosmic Ghost Rider, the one ratio variant was very expensive. It probably still is. It really depends on whether they're keys or not.
Yeah, no, I agree. And honestly, from most of the folks who answered our question over on Facebook, to have my brightness turned down far enough for anybody to see. Bear with me here. Turn my brightness way down. You can actually maybe see it now. Anyway, most people have agreed with us is that the chances are very slim to none for getting prices like Silver and Golden Age books. And it is basically because what we've all laid out. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about specifically is the rest of the traps that are set out there for us. Like you say, we've already delved into the ratio variants and the vendor exclusive variants and stuff like that. Things that I have written down in my notes are villain first appearances because of movie buzz.
Yeah.
Oh.
Now, again, guys, I'm just telling you straight up, and I will tell you this too. If I'm selling something online and it happens to coincide with that, I'm capitalizing on a market trend that I see. The market trend that I see is a villain is announced for a movie, a trailer has dropped, casting announcements, etc. The first week build up before the movie hits. If I have a first appearance of said villain, I'm trying to liquidate it at that point because that's where the market is going to peak. And it's going to peak, but I'm telling you right now, if you're buying it there, the market is then going to soften. It's going to drop. Give it a couple weeks. It's like clockwork. It's like clockwork. I mean, look. And again, I'm talking about for modern age stuff. I'm not talking about for Silver Age stuff. The first appearance of the Vulture and Amazing Spider-Man. Sorry, kids, that was already an astronomically high book. It might have got a small bump because of the movie, and it might have softened some, but it ain't never going to soften enough to be put in my collection unless if somebody just gives me a smoking deal. Somebody's grandma passes away and they're like, we're just cleaning out the closets. Take it all. I don't want it.
Yeah, but that's a Spider-Man villain, and that's an older book. I mean, I think like with current villains, it is a struggle because they don't appear in the books enough times. If it's a new hero, then or somebody that has their own book, I think it's a little bit different. But the villain appearances now aren't as valuable as the villain appearances that happened in the past.
Now, William, I'm going to put this one up here, and this is right in your wheelhouse. This guy right here.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me 2-3 years ago, but let's even go back further because that would have made this a newer book at the time. First appearance of Mr. Bloom. Before Rebirth drops, I'm not touching this book for $3. That's what I paid for it this time. I'm not touching it. Now, have they done anything at all with Mr. Bloom since Rebirth?
Not a bloody thing.
Not a thing.
And that was the hottest Batman book, minus Batman #1 that came out of a New 52 run.
That's my whole point, guys, for all of this is brand new villain, thought it was going to have legs because like William said, the hottest book to come out except for Batman #1 from the New 52, and it's dropped off the face of the planet. I picked it up for $3. Chances are really high you could probably pick it up in dollar bins at this point from people who spec'd on it, felt burnt because they haven't done anything with it. On down the road you go, you know what I mean? Now again, at $3, I'm not hurt on it. I'm basically paying cover price on it. Actually, a little less than cover price. This is a $4 book, so less than cover price is what I end up paying for it. Now, if it does go somewhere in the future, if somewhere down the road, you know, I can't remember who the new Batman is. Help me out, William. Robert Pattinson. There we go. You're not William, but I'll take it, Todd. Anyway, if his new villain is Mr. Bloom, I hit it. I'm good. But I ain't gonna lie to you, I'm not holding on to it at that point. I'm getting rid of it because, like I said, to me, that's a trap that people fall into is buying them at that time, and that actually daisy chains into another thing: fear of missing out. How many of these books do we have that are fear of missing out books that people pay astronomical amounts of money inside of the first 2 weeks of a book being released, and then you go back later and it's like, I probably shouldn't have panicked so hard. There's literally 100,000 of these books out there. I could have waited.
Well, with the whole fear of missing out thing, let's look at like Totally Awesome Hulk #22, the first appearance of Weapon H. Now, you know, people are very critical of that book, but if they wrote really good stories and they made even a movie with Weapon H, I mean that could possibly reach Deadpool first appearance levels, potentially. I mean, because and then you get like Cosmic Ghost Rider, same thing. I mean, if Cosmic Ghost Rider is continuously written into really good stories and we get a movie or anything from that character, I mean, I think today, I think that the Deadpool is probably the best example of what we might be able to expect in the future from comics today. Because, I mean, really, the 90s comics, I mean, 90s was excessive. And now we're here today, and it's probably not that much different than the 90s. So it might even be less.
I was going to say, I disagree somewhat because I think that the publishers are slightly more responsible than they were in the 90s. Let's be real. The 90s were definitely excessive whenever you have 500,000 books going out. Or what was X-Men #1? Was it 8 million books that they printed of X-Men #1?
Yeah, I think something like that.
The #1 all-time selling book for them keeping records on it. I mean, dude, at least now what you get is you get multiple print runs of books. And those multiple print runs, at least you get different covers. It does in some ways water down it waters down the market a little bit, but I mean, you know, again, it keeps print runs down and gives you a little something different to put in your collection, as opposed to you know, they may end up with 500,000 books, but they're printing them up in, let's say, 80,000, 120, and then 100 and 100 and 100. You get up to 500,000 of them, but you've got 4 or 5 different covers for it. Maybe a couple of pages of added like I don't know, not actual storyline, but you get a couple of pages of concept art added to occasionally, some of those things. I'm for them adding value to these books. I just don't know that they always do. But I think that they're more responsible by doing smaller print runs and doing first, second, third prints.
You know, just to go back to, you had mentioned the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and for anybody who hasn't watched the Toys That Made Us on Netflix, that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles one was mind blowing, because they basically wrote like a 4-book story about turtles that were violent, and then that one guy on the show, and if you watch it, you'll know that one guy. He went and sold all the toys and made it into this amazing, miraculous thing. And I think, like, with the whole, you know, outside of the mainstream Kickstarters and stuff like that, if you can find that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right, you could potentially produce a pretty valuable book that is rare and scarce, right? I mean, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 probably sells, the first print probably sells for like 10 grand, from what I understand, you know, a good copy. And so it is possible to create value for these books, especially if you could do the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles thing. But and sorry to go back to this again, but like I think we kind of flatlined in the 90s, right? We had this high, you know, we had these golden age that are really very, very valuable, and then we got the silver age that, you know, is valuable, like Hulk 181, right? It's not a totally scarce rare book, but it's very valuable. But then, you know, we kind of hit that Deadpool mark, and I think like any book created now is going to probably fall into that Deadpool range. Like I mentioned, Totally Awesome Hulk 22. I mean, if they really did something cool with Weapon H, I think that could hit the Deadpool range. Is it ever? I mean, Golden Age is not accomplishable unless society collapsed and half of the United States was blown up, which, you know, you never know. It could possibly happen.
Let's try not to make that the goal, though. Okay, let's keep the goal that society stays where it's at, because then unless we go Book of Eli range, then we're kind of just not going to care about comics at all.
Well, I'm going Man in the High Castle. I don't know if you watched that, but
okay, yeah.
But
go there.
There was one guy that had a shop in the Japanese section of America, and he was selling old America stuff. So I mean, that's kind of where I'm thinking is.
Yeah, I'll allow that. I just want, like you say, I want to go full Mad Max. I don't want to go Book of Eli. Let's keep it a little less post-apocalyptic for our viewers. What's that?
I heard it's official that they are doing a second new Mad Max film.
That's cool. I would go see that.
Just throw that in. I'm like, you know,
segue.
Old man buttons. One of my old man nerd buttons. I go, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Quick, tell them.
Well, you know, that's a good point. I mean, I think we've covered this one topic. Did you guys see the trailer for Black Widow? I know Taskmaster, and the Russian Red Guardian.
Red Guardian
appear in that. I mean, what do you guys think about that? Have you seen the trailer? What are your thoughts?
It's okay. I personal opinion time on it is the movie should have been made 5-6 years ago. Then it wouldn't feel so much like an out-of-dated prequel. Now, again, they could be setting up backstory for guys who are going to show up later in the franchise. But to me, it feels like I'm more invested in her than I was in Captain Marvel. So I'm not going the Captain Marvel route on this, but it does have a little bit of a feel towards Captain Marvel.
I don't know. I just watched Captain Marvel. It was okay. I mean, it was. I watched it probably I think yesterday or the day before, and I mean, it wasn't as bad as I heard it was. It was entertaining. I of course there was a bit of an agenda. I really didn't dig the whole Gwen Stefani "I'm Just a Girl" song in that movie. I thought it just didn't fit. It felt like it was just crammed in there. But I thought that was good. And with Black Widow, I agree with you that Mitchie. I agree with you. I mean, the time frame is definitely off. I am curious to see Red Guardian. I'm a little bit disappointed that Taskmaster doesn't look a little bit more like Taskmaster. That I think that's probably the biggest thing that bugged me. The Red Guardian I could forgive because I like that guy from the Netflix show, so I could live with that.
William, what do you think on it, man?
Well, I think that Avengers 43 is not going up anymore in the near future. I think he makes a better Red Guardian than he did a Hellboy. And I have a theory on Taskmaster.
Well, don't hold out on us, man. You're our guest. You gotta share the scoop, man.
Going back to all the Hawkeye Widow things of you the boot test a lot differently than I do. All the many times they went after that.
Right.
I think they flipped the script from the comics, and I think Clint is actually Taskmaster. Before he became Hawkeye, because as we saw in progression, after Hawkeye came who?
Ronan.
There we go.
I don't know. I just watched Thor though, the very first episode, the very first movie of Thor, and Hawkeye's in that movie. So I don't know if I can agree with you on that one.
Oh, it's just a theory. I have lots of them.
Right.
But
hey, I've heard way worse theories than that. I could see it. I think it's more likely that Taskmaster evolves his look. In other words, that may not be the final boss version, if you will, if we'll use a video game reference there, the final boss version of Taskmaster. That may be an early glimpse at Taskmaster. That's my opinion. That's my theory on it. And I know that's not original to me. Other people have had that same theory that maybe this is an early Taskmaster and we'll see a full-fledged Taskmaster later in the movie. Maybe this is super early in the movie or something. I do like your idea on Budapest, though. If they don't reference it, if they don't show some type of passing backstory with it, I think they're missing a big opportunity there to kind of close a loophole that's kind of been there and has been a running gag for them. Give it something. Give it something where Clint shows up for a cameo that way. Something.
We need an answer, kind of like Tahiti.
Yes, kind of like Tahiti for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Absolutely. I agree with that. And I don't believe that Marvel will leave us hanging on that one. I think that they more than likely will tie that loose end up for us. Look, has Marvel been perfect with their storytelling in the movies? They haven't been perfect, but they've been pretty good. you know, they've found ways to kind of close some of those loopholes.
Do you
So,
think? Do you think with the Black Widow that, I mean, there could be some kind of an extension off of that? I mean, I made a post on Facebook because I was watching Endgame, and Gamora died to get the Soul Stone, and then past Gamora came back and was alive. So I mean, you could technically say that past Black Widow could be alive. I mean, I know Scarlett Johansson had mentioned about having an all-female Avengers film, and when I heard that, I was like, why do you want that when your character's dead? You know, like, wouldn't you want to be a part of that? You know, so I mean, Marvel's done such a good job. I mean, could there be something where there's, at the end of this movie, there's this time travel thing where Ant-Man goes back and says, we're going to bring you forward to the future?
it's possible. I think though that we would be looking more at like the multiverse and just having some of these be multiverse stories. You established the multiverse already in Endgame. Everybody who kind of wanted for Spider-Man Homecoming to be the full establishment of the multiverse, they did that in Endgame. The Ancient One explained how it would work. That you have one timeline progression, but whenever you go back in time and alter it, a new branch comes off of. They've already established that. I think there's something like at least 4 confirmable new spin-off timelines.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, honestly, they could do a all-female Avengers taking on Loki in Loki's timeline, and it would be good enough that most of us who are comic book nerds would be okay with it. And that again is where I get a little bent out of shape with people like the guy that I had a bit of a heated discussion with on his YouTube channel, where he said he doesn't care about anything about what ifs or Elseworld stories. He only wants main continuity. And the truth of the matter is, I got news for everybody. What if and Elseworlds are part of main continuity because of the multiverse in both DC and Marvel. So you don't have to like it. It is what it is. You know what I mean? That's the way I look at it. And like I said, that's why I get a little bent out of shape of people who don't like what ifs.
So let me ask you guys. So we got the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? And they're basically taking the stories that have been created throughout the ages and running with them, but changing them up a little bit. And I thought to myself, like, the one day, it would be really cool if the Marvel Cinematic Universe created their own character. I mean, how do you guys feel about that? Because John, I mean, I know you have said to me that you look at it kind of like a what if, and it would, you know, so I was kind of thinking to myself, it would be really cool if they came out with a movie with a character that we've never seen in the comic books that is a part of the cinematic universe.
I'll let William answer that if he wants to, because I do have an opinion, and I have some basis for why I have the opinion I have. William, is this something you've considered before, or do you need a second?
No, well, they did something like that with the one of the Marvel mobile games where they brought Luna Snow in, and they made a big deal of it, in like all their PR when they brought her into the video game, because it's the first time they've created an original character for a video game prior to an appearance in a comic, and then they brought all these other characters they had made, and they started bouncing back and forth that they, you know, original for the game, original in the books, back and forth. And I was like, eh. And then they did the Marvel What If versions where they had the amalgam of like Iron Man and Thor, and they had like a few of them, and I'm like, well, the concepts are cool, and I don't mind seeing them in like a limited series kind of thing, but I don't want to see them all the time.
Right, right. Um, I will go even to the cartoons. There have been several times they have created characters for cartoons that ended up being very successful in comic books, and one of them we've already mentioned, which is Harley Quinn. Batman Adventures was Harley Quinn was made so that the Joker could appeal to a younger audience and not be the maniacal, like crazy person murderer. Give him a bit of a comedic sidekick there. And she was so wildly popular, they had to find a way to bring her to the comic books. I personally think that if they did that, again, I think that they probably should do something. Um, they should do something where they introduce them in someone else's movie, maybe sidekick them a couple of times in several movies, then give them their own movie, and all the while angling towards we're introducing this person in comics too. That would definitely be a good way to go, in my opinion.
Well, you make a good point, because one of my favorite villains in the old Batman series was King Tut, because he was just kind of funny. And I'm pretty sure that King Tut has never appeared in a comic book before.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think he has. William, do you know if King Tut's ever been in a comic book?
Not mainstream, no.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, there's a character that was created that's stuck in my memory that I'm just like, I enjoyed I like that show. So I mean, I enjoyed the episodes where King Tut was in that show. So we've pretty much talked to death all of this stuff. And we're pretty much coming on the hour mark. So let's get some final thoughts here. John, why don't you go first, and then William?
Well, man, I'm glad that we had this discussion, because again, it was something that I think was good for our comic book community to hear. As far as probably the perspective that we all need to kind of be looking at for the future of our hobby that we love. I want to thank Reggie for bringing this up and kind of inspiring us to do this podcast. He's been a friend of to the podcast, so I want to send him a shout out. Also, want to remind people to like, share, subscribe, comment down below if you don't agree with some of the criteria that we've given out for things to invest in. If we're not professional investors, but we've been doing this long enough, we can definitely see some of these trends happening. And I think there's been a lot of really, really good information shared. So you guys, hopefully it helps you guys with your comic book collection. Hope you guys enjoyed.
William, what are your final thoughts, brother?
Virgin variants are overpriced. Changed my mind.
Yeah, I can't. No, I
Not
can't.
going to be able to do that. Actually, nope. Sorry.
Nope.
Unless you're talking about, I mean, unless it's a key issue. If it's a key issue with a really cool character that people really dig, then I could make that argument, because I could have spent $50 and bought that first appearance of Cosmic Ghost Rider, sold it for $700, and then went and bought a few books that I wanted. But other than that, I mean, 99%, you're 99% correct on that. As far as comic books and the future value of comic books, I'm sorry to go back to the Deadpool thing, but I mean, I think if there's a character that's really, really popular and you can get their first appearance and they're new, then I think it's worthwhile to pick up their first appearance. That's why it's good to stay on top of things. One of the things that I will suggest to all of you guys is check out the Key Collector app. The Key Collector app every single week tells you the keys for that week. And that's one of the things that I use. I go on, I punch the button, I check it out, and he says, these are the first appearances, this is what you should look for. And Nick Colonies, the Key Collector guy, has joined us many times. He's a great guest. He's a great conversationalist. I know he takes a lot of flack, but he does it out of the love. He's a really great guy. If you have any questions or comments for Nick, you can make them directly to Nick, and Nick will respond to you. He's a great guy. With all that being said, we're going to wrap this one up. Peace out to everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Be good or be good at it, guys. Thanks, William.
Thank you.